The girl is stuck in a time loop and is constantly reborn after death. She is looking for ways to break this spell and change her fate. She is engaged to a man she does not love. This is where the whole solution lies. I want to ask you to like this video right now and subscribe to the channel if you want the story to continue. It costs nothing for you, but for me, it is a sign of your recognition. A red-haired girl in a dirty shirt stood outside, recalling beginnings. Gray sky, drizzle, empty garden. She spat out a gold coin. Only the neck wound's pain told her she was alive. Nothing else moved her. She went inside before being seen, entering the creaking, familiar house. She paced a long, window-lit corridor, leaving muddy footprints. Wet hair, clothes, body, dripping water. She was back at 17 start. First times, she hoped to escape. Next, she pondered death. Then she grew used to it, then just lay there. Eventually, she forgot her name. A maid's excited words woke her, urging her to rise. She stayed in bed, reluctant. The maid insisted she prepare early. The maid opened curtains, sunlight flooding in. Happy birthday. The girl looked up sadly, silent. It wasn't her birthday. She recalled a red-covered book on the table with papers. She entered this affair but couldn't exit the novel for 117 years. The book told of Karen Geyer, a lovely girl dreaming of true love. She was to marry Durand for the estate, but broke it off, leaving him. Her impulsive act ruined her family. She became Lady Azella's maid. That period was hard, physical labor and humiliation. Then someone helped her, changing her life and bringing joy. A tall, golden-haired, green-eyed man gazed tenderly, capturing her heart. With Raymond Azella's fiancé, Karen finally found true mutual love. The novel's plot spanned a year, ending happily for their love. Karen dies in the final chapter when poison is slipped into her wine. Her sudden, tragic death also marks the novel's end. Fainting from a sore throat, Karen suddenly wakes. In a garden, terrified and shaking, clothes soaked, she's back a year before the tragedy. She loves Raymond again, but their tight hug leads to eternal sleep. Her fate was a tragic end, not a happy family life. Her life ended abruptly and just as tragically. Even another choice of man couldn't change her fate. Even if she never married, she'd still have died. So, Karen's tragic ending was unavoidable. Her death varied. Once pushed from a window, maids couldn't save her. Next, a loyal maid brutally stabbed her. Another time she fell in the river. No rescue came. Her wet dress dragged her down, drowning her. Once she was in a burning room, screaming for help, but no one could save her. After each death, she'd restart in a dirty garden, always with a coin in her mouth. Karen eyed the coin she'd woken with, saying, "Finally, the 100th time." Nancy asked about the shiny coin Karen held. Karen sighed, "Just a lucky coin." Nancy thought Karen guessed well and claimed she guessed better, proposing a bet. Nancy placed water and a towel, saying if heads came up, Karen must be a good lady. Karen quickly agreed to the bet, seeing no harm in it. She tossed a glowing coin that rang and said if heads. Karen caught it, then told Nancy, "Heads means a bad life." The maid objected. Despite all, Karen chose the bad path. She washed her face and pondered. She dunked her face, thinking suicide. Nancy yelled, but Karen remembered she couldn't die for a year. Nancy helped with her hair, asking if marriage sparked this. She cited Durand, her childhood fiancé. Karen disagreed, offering to swap brides, Durand for Nancy's handsome lover. Nancy smiled, saying she'd said that, and thought, "Touch my husband, go to heaven." Karen said she joked, recalling Nancy had killed her before for that. She was glad she didn't now. Some things felt awkward, like preparing for her coming-of-age ceremony the day after rebirth. Nancy was glad she'd dress up, if not for Durand, for another man. The maid said she'd always wanted Karen happy, but Karen hated the tight corset. At last, she entered the hall, stunning. Her pinned red curls showed her swan neck. The corset made her waist tiny. At 17, she radiated charisma and sex appeal. Men devoured her with looks. Women were envious. Near the stairs, Karen saw her hated priest fiancé. Wet hair, pale face, dark circles. He glared at her. Karen frowned. Durand came over, asking why she looked at her husband like that. But she recalled the novel. Karen had no reason to love Durand. She snapped he wasn't her husband yet, and he'd come to her party in the rain, drenched. She thought lovemaking might end it. Durand said a good wife obeys her husband. She looked around, just the same guests from her past lives. The untalented musicians, losing interest fast, played the same songs again. For Karen, it was a constant coming-of-age rite. She looked up sadly, feeling in hell, wishing it over. Durand said no point in brooding, face reality. She took the hint, though it wasn't her dream. She asked if she must accept fate. Durand nodded vaguely, but she knew he meant exactly that. He bowed, took her hand to dance, saying saying she must even if she disliked it. She didn't want to, but had to. It was her 69th dance. She foresaw the same events, a couple stepping on feet for the 45th time, a broken glass for the 78th. Seeing her blank sadness, he told her to smile. Whispers surrounded them. He reproached her for making him a laughingstock. Yet her face stayed sad. Guests once more sympathized. Karen stared blankly at the man she disliked. Durand, outraged, quit dancing, tired of being mocked as a fool. Karen saw no change. All went as in past lives. This 100th rite. She resolved to alter the tale and grabbed Durand's clothes. He was shocked, but Karen held his clothes, demanding he follow. Onlookers gaped. She merely tried something new, pulling him along. He angrily asked her intent. Smiling, she said they must wed at once. He was left puzzled, her odd behavior unlike her usual ways. They reached her room. For Karen, it was a decisive, private moment. Durand watched excitedly. She pushed him onto the bed, let down her hair, looking lovelier. She hovered over him, determined, eager for novelty. Her persistence excited him. Durand gazed at his bride, drowning in her violet eyes, her scent luring him. Karen, ready, told him to undress. He obeyed. After their intimacy, Durand dressed, still stunned. Karen dressed, fixed her hair, tidied up, unrepentant. They stood silent, apart, despite their recent closeness. Durand broke the silence, turning angrily, blaming her. Karen sighed, annoyed at his complaints, unsurprised. She took his hand, reminding him to behave properly, asking for a proper hold. Karen, though unhappy, seized her chance, reminding him of 3 dances. He sighed. Back in the hall, whispers followed them. A lady remarked Karen married only through inheritance. Another lady said the Lord paid her fees. Guests kept discussing them. Karen and Durand stood waiting for the song, ignoring the annoying whispers. Durand offered his hand, inviting her. So, let's dance. Karen silently gave her hand, agreeing to dance. Surprised, he didn't complain. The ladies mocked Durand, wondering if the Lord taught him to dance. They gossiped, but Karen and Durand heard. Again, she was surprised. Karen didn't understand why he endured the ridicule. His discomfort was clear. Suddenly, a servant carrying glasses accidentally pushed Durand hard. He fell to the floor, furious, wanting to teach the trembling servant a lesson. Karen expected this, so she wasn't surprised. People kept gossiping. Some guests laughed at Durand's mishap, unafraid he'd hear. They heard all, but Karen ignored them, accepting fate, and stayed composed. Karen promptly offered her hand to Durand. He saw her helping hand, shocked she wasn't mocking but sincere. Karen sympathetically tried to help, showing all was well. Durand and guests were surprised, watching curiously how it would end. Karen recalled Durand's cruel wine pouring on the servant, shocking her. Durand stared suspiciously at her, wanting to speak but hesitating. He suddenly stood, angry, dismissing the servant, who apologized and left. Karen stood still as a statue, unable to believe his change. Durand took her hand and suggested they keep dancing. Karen agreed. They acted as if nothing happened. Karen saw Durand felt no shame. For the first time, he continued dancing. Durand changed after 99 years. Karen saw this as good news. She smiled, eyes glowing with joy. The novel's heroine is Karen, an eternal girl with red hair and purple eyes. A girl at a table held a coin, recalling her 100 years as Karen. First rule, lasts a year, starts with rain in the garden. Second, dies and resets. Third rule, after awakening, she finds a coin with her rebirth number in her mouth. Looking in the mirror, she flipped a coin uphill, thinking she could go home by breaking rules. So she ate lots of fatty foods to gain weight quickly. She also moved to charity work, feeding starving kids and adults. She once tried suicide, but nothing changed. She recalled maids quarreling in her room, none wiping her body. Then she swore to take revenge in her next life on those who let her rot. Suddenly, a coin rolled. Karen watched it, recalling past lives. She wondered about revenge for uncommitted acts, fearing negative consequences. She recalled the novel and her 48th birthday. Karen, hurt, asked Durand for help. Angry, he said she could bandage herself, then broke off their engagement. Ill, she spent a year in bed. Raymond cared for her. She died bloody, hearing shouts for a doctor from a wild boar bite infection. In her 58th life, she recalled Isella, Karen's rival, yelling, "How dare you seduce Raymond?" Karen denied it, but Isella didn't believe her. Though spared that day, worse awaited. Isella had tar poured on Karen, disfiguring her, causing fatal burns. At 18, Verdict Evans arrived with an axe, a nightmare on her happiest day. On her wedding day, he entered her room. She asked how he got in. He glared, grabbed her head, raised the axe, demanding payment for theft. He then beheaded her and tossed the head beside her corpse. She recalled a book, thinking of many similar deaths, and how many more. And not just these killers, she had many lives ending in death. Indeed, many others wanted her dead, and she knew who they were. The coin rolled on before ceasing. Karen pondered revenge for their past killing of her. She approached, sat, and reached for it. This time she acted boldly. She recalled those maids. Despite their innocence now, they'd wronged her in a past life. So she couldn't forgive them, even if they'd forgotten their murder of her. Karen remembered her painful death at their hands. Even many targets were fine. She had time as the reborn. Why hadn't she planned revenge on all killers before? Holding the coin, she sought evil. Revenge fit perfectly. Karen rose, realizing why she'd never considered revenge. She recalled days with beloved Raymond, his hugs, loving looks, shared laughter, warming her soul and fueling her resolve. Karen believed love changed people and the world, but her lover taught her true mutual love. Now she knew love wasn't the answer. She went to the vase of roses. Plucking a rose, she tore its petals, realizing death, not love, transforms people. On her 117th birthday, Karen, holding a torn rose, decided to kill. At Gear Estate, a horse with a broken ankle lay, servants nearby. Verdict Evans frowned, saying he was annoyed. He knocked on the carriage window, telling Isella to get out. A golden-haired girl with purple eyes opened the door, asking what was wrong. He helped her out, saying walking was necessary. Isella obeyed reluctantly. They walked long, Isella exhausted, but her father insisted on fertile land. He noted fine orchards and woods, and sparse locals cut costs. Her father said if they got the lands, she'd rule them, Isella agreed. He saw it as pre-marriage learning. If she managed well, would Raymond notice? She blushed. She vowed to maintain the village road when she became ruler. A small church, shaded by trees, hosted talks and services. Locals, Lord Verdict Evans, and his daughter were there. Talks ended well. The Lord said they'd meet for 6 months. No rush, so don't worry. Verdict laughed. His time was precious, hard to arrange. The Lord thought he joked. Isella knew he hadn't. The Lord's church was old, shabby, and had cobwebs. Isella planned to fix it as ruler. She saw 2 women talking. One asked if it was that beautiful. Another said the atmosphere differed, exciting her friend greatly. Isella wondered what they awaited, so she followed. All looked alike in the chapel. She neared the excited talkers, puzzled by their behavior. She squeezed but failed, so she rose on tiptoes to see the focus. She froze, seeing a stunning girl. It was a red-haired beauty alone in the flickering old chapel. A beauty told her, "Lady," Isella turned. She was angelic. Isella was shocked she was a lady. She realized she was Lord Geyer's daughter, plainly dressed, no jewelry. Isella grew more irritated the longer she looked at her. Yet Isella knew this beauty wasn't her rival. She could overlook her. Isella watched the priest preach. All pure as doves, sinners damned forever. Soon the service ended. People left the chapel. Karen, who had prayed, rose and lamented no God heard her. Durand touched her shoulder, warning not to desecrate God here. She glared, removing his hand. His podium was worse than her words. Suddenly, Isella approached, greeted Karen, and introduced herself gladly. Isella asked who the priest beside Karen was. Durand couldn't answer, so Karen said he was her fiancé. Isella was surprised. She'd heard Karen was engaged, but not to this man. Despite Karen's beauty, she seemed doomed to stay with the pastor. Isella smiled, said they suited each other, hoped for their happiness. Durand blushed. Karen thanked her with a smile. Karen had told them this 100 times. It was always the same. Isella's fancy dress and jewels showed she'd learned nothing. Karen wondered if shaking Isella would make her ring and scream. Noticing Karen's gaze, Isella said, "You can't stop staring at my neck." Karen just smiled. Isella would have fled if she knew her thoughts. Isella smiled. The necklace was from her fiancé. Durand scolded Karen for being materialistic, but she agreed the necklace was lovely. "I thought it was a noose, girl." Next evening, Karen strangled her maid, saying she'd have done it faster with string. Karen told the corpse not to fret. She'd put the necklace on her. At sunset, the estate watched Karen's joyful smile, a first in years. All said her steps danced like the spring goddess. Her hands couldn't tear a petal, yet petals flew around her in the garden. That day, Karen smiled, having committed her first murder. Isella woke early, searched her room for the necklace she'd worn to church. Furious. A knock. Nancy brought water for her face. Isella glared at Nancy, asking who brought her home. Nancy said Isella slept in the meeting, so per the lady, she took her to bed. Isella angrily asked where her necklace was. Nancy was puzzled, but Isella said it was missing. Nancy had hung her clothes up. Isella dashed to the wardrobe, but no necklace. Nancy poured water to wash her face. She calmly told Isella that if it wasn't there, accept it, nothing more to do. Isella was furious. Words alarmed her and she glared. Nancy smiled, told her to hurry and wash as breakfast neared. This maid's boldness enraged Isella. She marched over, berated her, and slapped her. Isella yelled that Nancy stole it and must find it quickly. Nancy fell from the blow, red-faced, lips bleeding. She laughed and pointed at her cheek. Isella couldn't bear it. She gritted her teeth, wishing to punish her more. A knock came at the door. It opened and Karen entered with maids, surprised, asking who made the noise. Isella turned and yelled that her necklace was missing. Karen, surprised, said, "What? A necklace, Lady Isella?" Isella, annoyed, told Karen she couldn't find the necklace gone since morning. She glared at Nancy, suspecting her maid of the theft. Nancy, cheek sore, tearfully denied it. Isella's jaw dropped at her act. Karen, feigning worry, said she'd have maids search and asked Isella to tidy up. Isella disagreed, shouting to search for her necklace immediately, but seeing the servants' looks, she fell silent and calmed. Karen said Nancy had served long, hoping Isella understood. Isella bit her lip, cheeks reddening in shame. Servants searched everywhere for Isella's necklace. 2 maids in the corridor noted her fuss. All day they searched in vain. The maid thought Isella should manage her own things. Isella paced, telling her father the servants hadn't found it. She suggested searching the Lord's room. He angrily called it nonsense, asking if she'd ruin his work over a bauble. Tearfully, she asked what to do. It was a gift from Raymond. Verdict couldn't grasp her excitement over a necklace, not a ring. He mused. Raymond, a war hero and Baron's son, was an ideal match. But with his debt to them, his character wouldn't let him flee. He offered a similar necklace, but she insisted nothing would replace his gift. Her father refused to help, blaming her for the lost necklace. Isella saw he wouldn't assist. Afterward, in her room, she feared Raymond's disappointment over losing his gift. Distraught, she wanted to keep his affection. She resolved to leave once she found it. At the door, she froze, shocked to see her necklace on the bed. She rushed in, stepping in blood, staining her dress and shoes. Near the bed, she gasped, "Oh my God!" Maid Nancy's severed head, with Isella's necklace, lay on the bed. Terrified and tearful, she blamed herself, though she hadn't wished Nancy dead. Horrified and disbelieving, she fled her room quickly. She ran away, sobbing and trembling with fear. Isella didn't grasp her mistake. She was only cross with the maid, then dead. She didn't know her name, why her corpse was here, then tripped in the hall. Painful tears fell. She wondered what to do. She knew she wasn't at fault. Firstly, she'd avoid capture. People might think she killed the maid. Many saw their fight. Her corpse in her room made Isella the prime suspect. Just then, someone asked if she was okay, deepening her worry. Furious, she wondered why she met Karen now, in such a bad spot. Looking up, she saw Karen mockingly ask what happened in the night. Karen brought the lamp close. Isella was deathly pale. She wanted to explain but feared Karen might see her as a killer. She pictured Karen accusing her of the murder. Isella saw servants binding her hands as she tried to protest her innocence to Karen. But it was all illusion. She was on the floor, Karen before her, staring. Karen finally noted her blood-stained clothes. Isella saw blood on her dress and hand, couldn't explain. If seen, she'd be blamed, falsely accused of killing the maid. Desperate, she lost hope of help. Yet Karen offered her hand, inviting her to her room. She stared at Karen's extended hand, thinking she misheard. Karen leaned closer, smiling, promising it'd be their secret. Excited, Isella didn't grasp it, but took her hand. Karen lifted her, asking if she'd started her period. Isella entered Karen's room and dropped her dirty dress. Karen noted she must have been surprised they were adjoining. Karen dressed Isella and was glad to assist. Isella, realizing secrets are risky, chose to confide in Karen. Without delay, Isella revealed something awful in her room, shocking Karen. Mirroring her reflection, Isella looked truly terrified. Nothing scared her more than a corpse staring with her necklace. Seated, she faced Karen's calm questioning about what she saw. Silent at first, Isella's shock grew when Karen guessed a dead man. She asked what to do. Karen suppressed a laugh, explaining old buildings often have ghost sightings. Stunned, Isella dismissed it as a joke. Karen insisted she was truthful, made tea, then mentioned her terrible visions. She placed the flower in a cup, saying Isella would adapt and all would be well. As Karen poured hot water, Isella pondered the vision and its meaning. Isella trusted Karen, doubted it was a corpse, attributing it to fatigue. She took tea and asked Karen to accompany her to her room. Karen agreed with a smile, easing Isella's anxiety instantly. At her door, Karen reassured her, urging her to enter despite her fear. Clutching the knob, Isella hesitated. Karen calmly dismissed her fears as imagination. Thinking Karen right, Isella opened the door and they entered her room. Relieved, the room was spotless. No blood, her vision was just an illusion. Instead of a corpse, a black cylinder lay on her bed, with her necklace on it. Isella sighed, saying she must have imagined it. She picked it up, explaining she'd confused it with her necklace. Isella picked up the necklace, relieved, thinking worry about the maid caused her imagination. Still, she didn't want to stay there, so she asked Karen for another room, but Karen stayed silent. Despite repeated calls, Karen didn't answer. Karen stood still, staring ahead, unable to believe the room was empty, fear in her gaze. Isella, trembling, shook her by the shoulders to get a response. It worked. Karen took her hands, said she was fine, and promised to have the room cleaned. She added it was late, so they should rest. Karen returned, searching every corner for her maid's body. She searched everywhere but found nothing. Karen was stunned. She recalled Nancy's head in her lap, covering her mouth, asking why she seduced her. Karen saw the paralyzing poison in the food. Nancy couldn't move, fear in her eyes. She smiled. Nancy was off Sundays. No one would notice her absence. Karen snapped her neck. Her first kill in a century. She asked how she'd like to die. She'd died often. Nancy mumbled, trembling. Karen saw her disapproval. Karen released her, Nancy falling near Isella's necklace. She resolved to try harder. Nancy whispered, unheard. The necklace revealed Isella. Karen grabbed it, glaring. Nancy hadn't changed. Karen smiled, liking Nancy like this, and threw the necklace again. Karen tied the cloth around Nancy's neck. She knew she'd die. She pulled the fabric hard to strangle her maid fast, saying strings would have been quicker. Karen shook by Isella's bed, sure she'd killed Nancy. She felt her stop shaking and breathing. Angry, she grabbed the blanket, but no body. She couldn't understand her disappearance. Karen wanted Isella to see Nancy's corpse, imagining her terrified and crying. She'd be so scared she'd faint without a word. Furious at the interference, she shouted, "Why make it boring?" and tore the sheet. After calming, she sat thinking. Isella had been gone 30 minutes, not enough time to clean. Suddenly, she questioned if killing Nancy was mere illusion. Karen was furious. Clutching her dress, she refused to believe the murder's euphoria was fantasy. She feared losing her mind, crying that returning to life 100 times would drive anyone mad. Then Karen laughed maniacally, weeping like a lunatic. She stopped, wondering how she'd had such insane visions. Karen yelled, "Don't delude yourself with fantasies." She slammed her fist so hard the room shook. The blow bloodied her arm. Still seated, she resolved to kill Nancy next time and stay in Isella's room. Seeing her bruised hand, Karen recalled her promise not to kill Nancy. Again, she pondered how to finally end her rebirths. Then she tried with someone else. Karen did it before heading to her room. She met the butler in the hall. He was slightly taller, wore glasses, named Bovin. He was surprised. Karen expected Bovin earlier, so she waited longer. Seeing her hand, the butler grabbed it, asking if she was hurt. After checking her arm, Bovin said the wound needed quick treatment. Karen didn't need his help. His worry made her mad, so she told him to let go. He was confused. Durand came and asked what happened. Karen frowned, wondering why he came to fight again. Durand saw Karen's bruised hand and blamed the butler. Durand shouted at the butler, "How dare you touch my fiancé?" Karen wished he'd be properly jealous. Karen thought he'd be the hero if he dared. No matter now, she asked Butler to bring Lady Isella's meal to her room and hers to the drawing room for harpsichord. Butler promised to do it and fled the odd couple fast. Durand resented her backing Butler. He queried. She kept mum. He saw she'd move on. She grabbed his shoulder, told him to pray, get salve from his room. Durand spun and clutched her hand. Karen fumed, puzzled by his hand-grabbing habit. He noted she'd never used salve, so he'd assist. Soon in his room, he seated her, cleaning her arm. He used tweezers and soaked cotton to dress her wounds. Karen trembled, said it hurt, but he kept treating her wounds. Durand was careful, sad he couldn't stop her pain. Karen saw her bond with Durand shift slightly, though odd. She decided she must seize this chance to gain some advantage. Karen asked if she was still pretty. Durand feared her intentions. She met his gaze, trying to seduce. "I'm pretty, right?" Durand blushed, scared, and asked why she behaved this way after all. He took her hand, kissed it, saying it's because he's her fiancé. She recalled guiding him to her room, seeing it as his reward for for a new case. She remembered a servant pushing him. He didn't punish him. She expected proof he'd change for her. Karen eyed him passionately, wanting him to take her. She won. He yielded, taking his bride prisoner. Durand kissed her. Karen wished he'd steal her from Raymond. She clung, kissing, longing for him to adore her to death. Later, Isella met Karen, flaunting Raymond's necklace, saying losing it would upset her. She displayed it repeatedly, noting it cost like a mansion and came from her fiancé. Karen kept playing harpsichord, ignoring it, just saying Isella was lucky. She knew Raymond gave Isella gifts, but never a marriage promise. Karen was puzzled. Did Isella ignore that, or feign ignorance? Isella touted Baron's rank, but Karen tuned out. Isella turned. Surprised, Karen felt no envy, certain she'd never seen such wealth. Isella saw her arm wound but kept playing, ignoring it. Isella sat by Karen and asked why she played harpsichord, not piano. Karen said she'd played it since childhood, so she preferred it. Isella noticed it was out of tune and offered a piano. Karen declined, liking her harpsichord. Isella felt hurt, turned away, and puffed her cheeks. Upset Karen ignored her care. But remembering Karen's hard work last night, she calmed down. Also, Karen boldly went with her to find the necklace. Isella shook her head, trying to forget, convinced she'd imagined it. She looked at today's maid, not the one she'd yelled at. Isella asked where yesterday's maid was. Karen asked if she meant Nancy. Karen stopped playing and asked if she wanted Nancy to reflect. But Isella denied it, reminding her she'd mentioned the terrible thing in her room yesterday, imagining the servant beheaded. Karen stared, terrified, unable to grasp how it happened. Isella shrugged, admitting it sounded absurd. Maybe it was her imagination. Karen disagreed, insisting that even a vision shouldn't occur. Karen clearly remembered placing Nancy's body intact on Isella's bed. She wondered who'd done this to Nancy. No idea came to mind. Back in her room, Isella paced anxiously. She fretted over her sick maid off work, even biting her nails. She believed the maid was Nancy and wanted to see her. After Nancy brought water and was hit by Isella, she vanished. Isella, at the window, found it odd. Strange things had been happening to her since arriving. Isella heard a noise, trembled, and turned. Looking at the fireplace, she realized her worry was silly. The crackling was just burning wood. Isella sighed, still scared. This place felt more dangerous. A hard knock on the door made Isella tremble again. A maid entered, saying Isella had a letter from Baron Seitz. Hearing it was from Sir Raymond, she spun joyfully, cheeks flushing red. But then her face soured, and she demanded the letter angrily. Days later, Karen strolled the city, shopping, finding the streets quiet. Karen, with 18-year-old Donna, her new maid, was enchanted, thinking they'd reach another world. Karen needed to find Nancy's killer, but couldn't skip the ceremony. Missing it once went badly, so she must be cautious, yet sensed this time was different. Near Donna, who now had Nancy's spot, a handsome driver bought her jewelry. He gave it to Donna happily. Karen recalled his fondness for Nancy. Karen saw usual bustle, but subtle changes. More might come soon. The day was fair, sun breaking through clouds. Houses stood empty. Donna begged the butler to visit the circus. He lacked interest. Karen liked the idea. She and Nancy had only seen concerts. She took Donna's hand, suggesting they join. Together they pleaded with the butler. The butler yielded. They clapped. He bought tickets, telling them to wait outside. Karen and Donna visited a women's hat shop. Donna doubted she could persuade the butler. Karen asked why. Donna, browsing hats with Karen, said servants never heed maids' requests. She placed a pink hat with red roses, feathers, and blue ribbon on Karen. It suited her. Donna asked about servant numbers. Karen wondered why. She said they lack staff to clean and keep hiring maids. Karen put a red rose and blue ribbon hat on Donna. Donna said visitors like the Evanses give servants much work. Karen asked if they run many errands. Donna said not many. She said Sir Verdic, Lady Isella, and their 3 specialists each have servants. So with that many people, it must work thrice as hard. Donna anxiously asked Karen when they'd leave. Karen didn't know but hoped soon. She knew they wouldn't depart until they took their lands. Donna sighed and said Lady Evans scolded Sarah. Karen asked why. Donna explained Sarah didn't bring the letter on a silver tray. She was shocked they'd quarrel over that. Karen, upset, noted their family wasn't wealthy. Donna bowed, apologizing softly. Karen smiled, patted her head, and said she was joking. But Donna stared at her fingers. Karen urged her to smile. Donna obeyed, laughing loudly, and Karen joined in. Donna's eyes sparkled, seeing Karen smile. They laughed heartily, an unforgettable moment for both. Donna tried hats, asking Karen's opinion. Karen recalled thinking all maids were similar. After Nancy's death, Karen changed. She'd choose a wide-brimmed hat, explaining it would be cooler for Donna. Karen chose a tan hat for Donna, Dona, adding a brown bow. Dona loved her mirror reflection. Karen now cared about the maids, not Raymond with his blank look. Later, Dona asked if Karen liked a scarf. She didn't. Dona planned to give it to Madame Dare, so Karen asked if she disliked her that much. Dona smiled, calling Karen a joker since she meant Madame Dare. Karen had no memory of this woman, nor from the novel. Dona found this odd, noting Madame Dare taught Karen for 8 years. Karen couldn't recall her, realizing it predated her arrival. Then Dona said the teacher taught etiquette and dance. Dona asked again if Karen truly forgot. Karen lied, claiming she remembered. Dona was pleased, saying Madame Dare lived close, so they'd visited her. Karen mused on this teacher, who'd lived at the manor 8 years, yet her name was unknown to her after a century. Looking at the store's people, Karen felt the once boring events now mattered. Karen smiled, sure these small changes could save her. The butler rushed in, urging them to leave because the performance was starting. Dona, excited for the circus, told Karen to hurry so they wouldn't be late. Karen gazed skyward, pondering Madame Dare and how to change her life. She smiled, eager to meet Madame Dare. The circus crowd watched in awe as the girl performed dangerous aerial tricks. As the girl fell, Karen recalled her own similar fall. She watched the fearless acrobat sway, reminded of her fall when she wished to die normally. Falling fast, she prayed the horror would end forever. At the last moment, another acrobat caught the falling girl, and they continued their aerial stunts together. Dona and Butler knew it was part of the act, but Karen felt sad, thinking her fall would never end. The acrobat girl kept flying under the dome, cheered by the audience. Karen, new to the circus, decided to enjoy the performance and not think about her past. Suddenly, she saw a man selling cold drinks. She waved for him to come over. She bought a beer. He smiled and handed it to her carefully. The butler paid for Karen's beer, and Dona thought it was a treat, but he said she'd work it off. The host announced the next act, the circus's pride, and asked for applause. Karen was curious. Moments later, a huge elephant walked on stage, the theater's pride. Many saw an elephant for the first time and screamed with excitement. Karen, like most watching, was stunned too. An elephant's trunk works like a hand. Dona found him cute, though Karen didn't. He spun a chair with his trunk. Then he threw all the chairs, clearly refusing to perform for the crowd. His trainer glowered, saying the whip was the best cure for naughty kids. Karen glared at the trainer, hoping he wouldn't hurt the animal. But he hit it hard anyway, and she realized she was under fate's whip too. Spectators egged him on. Karen saw her fate enjoying her pain just like them. Why were they having fun? In its place, they wouldn't be so happy or excited. She wondered if breaking a beer glass would be more fun. The glass cracked, and the elephant turned to look at her at once. The trainer grew angrier as the elephant got distracted and stopped performing. Karen's servants worried. Even the drink seller rushed over to ask if she was okay, but she stayed calm, offering to leave the circus, bored by the dull show. Dona reminded her they'd watch together. The butler called it the best part. Karen rose to leave, but the circus worker urged her to stay, praising the show. She disagreed, fixed her hair, and a glowing earring appeared. The elephant's eyes lit up again at the sparkle. The elephant got distracted, so the trainer whipped and shouted at him again. Karen saw the elephant react to the broken mug and her earrings. She smiled, and they shone. The elephant noticed her earrings again. Karen thought he was smart and sensitive for such tricks. She hoped he was sensitive and kept staring into his eyes. She silently repeated he could do it, as if to hypnotize the elephant. She succeeded. The elephant got angry and aggressive. The trainer was puzzled. The elephant attacked the unprepared trainer, blood flying, avenging his abuse. Circus staff urged the audience to flee quickly to survive. Panicked spectators shouted amid the noise, scrambling to escape. The butler and Dona helped Karen to safety. Karen kept controlling the elephant's mind, ordering him to break free. The elephant raged more, stomping and roaring, fed up with suffering and abuse. Karen persisted, commanding him to reclaim his freedom. The elephant approached her again, ready to strike Karen, who provoked him. The butler and Dona shielded Karen from the bishop. The elephant's foot hovered over Karen, but she felt no fear, trapped in a century-old nightmare. A gunshot felled the elephant. The butler and Dona hid Karen's eyes, but she demanded to see. Karen saw the dead elephant. Closer, Karen saw he'd been killed, and she guessed who. A worker asked if she was fine, but Karen ignored him. Such roles weren't for extras. She stayed by the elephant. An employee shoved her, nearly knocking her down. Karen stared at the empty exit, but soon she was sure he'd arrived. She was right. The Golden Devil, the matin shooter, walked in. He was also the book's hero and Karen's ancient lover. Karen glared at him, recalling he didn't know her name. Raymond Seitz, golden-haired, tall, green-eyed, held his rifle. Dusk fell, sun hid, yet rays pierced clouds into windows. Karen walked alone, pondering the day's events. All went as planned. She knew Raymond's meeting her would swiftly change the world. Since she couldn't leave, she seized her chance now. She sought Madame Dare for a new clue before changes faded. Karen ran, sure she could alter today. She saw a huge animal absent for a century. Sadly, the elephant died, but she survived to start anew. She paused at a dark alley with a lamp lighting everything. Karen recalled this was a danger spot where two men attacked her. She had time, Raymond met, so she felt safe on this road. That path led quickly to Madame Dare's. But a man blocked her, asking her hurry's cause. Her instinct failed. Two men faced her, like before. One asked if she was rich. He touched her face, asked her age, and if she had a boyfriend. She glared. She didn't grasp how twice in a day she'd stumbled into danger. Karen tapped his arm to stop him. He looked shocked. His friend gaped. Karen wondered why, having met Raymond, she still faced danger, likely due to her actions. Maybe staying at the circus until the end was wiser. He touched her face again, asking her thoughts. His friend shouted it was the Lord's daughter. He said she was God-blessed. Karen, silent, stared, nearly laughing. Karen recalled her mother's blessing of luck, but it was just words. What blessing could help her, doomed to an unnatural death? A stranger held her hands. Because she was the Lord's daughter, he'd spare her for a price. He gripped her arms, ordering a search. She resisted, but in vain. He found her wallet, took it. She regretted that path. One man rifled her purse. Another held her tight. She struggled, pleading to be released. Minutes later, his partner said sadly her wallet was empty, enraging them. Hands shoved Karen hard, and she fell, then yelled, "You're the Lord's daughter?" Annoyed, he stripped her jewelry, scolding her for it while she had no coin. Karen glared. "Hans, know how hard this hair? Nancy's masterpiece?" Frightened, Hans asked how she knew his name. She rose, saying even his wife wouldn't want that jewelry. She added, "If shot, your wife won't care. Try hitting me, bravely." Scared, his friend called Karen crazy. Hans told him to silence her. He hit Karen's cheek so hard it swelled instantly. Karen, "Thomas, if you die, your son will lick my mansion floor." She smiled. "Don't be sad, I'll soon follow you." Thomas trembled more. He drew a knife. Karen thought, "End like last time?" She recalled Raymond saving her and killing those two men. Thomas held a knife to her neck. Karen said to kill her. He was puzzled by her. She screamed to end it fast, but his hand shook. Karen glanced aside. Raymond should arrive soon. Thomas glared. "Rubbish keeps blocking me?" Instead of slitting, he stabbed her belly, unexpected. She realized her mistake. Hans scolded Thomas, who retorted, "She started it." In agony, Karen clutched her wound, knowing Don's swap ruined her timing. She cried, unable to bear the pain. Karen screamed, "Raymond!" Hands covered her mouth, told Thomas to kill her. She couldn't believe she'd die here. Thomas swung his knife. Karen accepted her fate, but a shot killed Thomas instantly. Hans died too. Karen told her savior he was too late. Realizing her own escape, she felt silly. She didn't want to see Raymond. He asked if she was okay. Karen recalled their instant love. She turned away, eyes closed. 100 years of this, she thought. She looked again, remembering when Raymond fell for her. Raymond's sights. Handsome, strong, captivating many with his charm. Though not a noble knight, he was among those who brought peace to the folk. He was a sniper. Aristocrats deemed sniping unworthy, so chivalric norms didn't bind him. He finished tasks fast and left the scene just as quickly. Accused of cowardice after his first mission, he ignored the talk. Yet each completed task slowly silenced the critics. Eventually, he slew 300 foes alone. Then Raymond's sights became an empire hero. Thus, people dubbed him the Matansky shooter, a true pro. His nickname made him seem monstrous, so some feared him. But now reactions turned to respect and envy. Young knights' eyes shone with admiration, feeling his dignity and wishing to emulate him. Zenon smiled, seeing Raymond's dinner, knowing the knights admired him. He served steak, but Raymond said it was enough. He ate by the fire, looking at it sadly. Zenon felt Raymond didn't deserve that nickname. Raymond said his mission was at 2 a.m., and Zenon offered to ready his weapon, but Raymond had done it himself, as always. He'd handled the wounded knights and his subordinates, and Zenon couldn't understand why such a man suffered. Raymond carried Karen, unconscious from pain. He told Zenon to fetch water and bandages, and Zenon ran off. Zenon saw nothing could stop Raymond from saving someone, so maybe he'd let the lady be hurt. Soon, Karen lay in the carriage, head on Raymond's lap, held by him. Dona, the butler, and Zenon sat opposite. Dona said she'd done as the knight asked. Karen said Sir Sights had come to their land. Raymond cited personal business. He wanted to see his fiancée, who was at their estate. Donna asked who the bride was. Raymond said Lady Isella Evans, and the two fell silent, not gossiping. Karen saw their sour faces and smiled at once. She regretted it. Her stomach wound ached. Donna asked what was wrong. Raymond coldly said the corset had kept the wound shallow. His calm talk didn't soothe Donna. She was shocked he discussed her lady's wound so lightly. Seeing her worry, he offered to remove the corset and check. Karen frowned, calling him sneaky. He denied any intent. Donna called him shameless. Karen said he joked, and they were near the estate. The carriage sped over stones, rumbling and shaking hard. Karen winced, clenching her teeth, hoping to get home soon. The butler, seeing Lady's pain, argued with Raymond, who said it's not dangerous. Karen asked, not dangerous? He said he wasn't teasing. Danger and pain differ. She lay on his lap, tired and moody, not meaning to be sarcastic. Silence fell. Only wheels rumbled as each thought privately. Karen woke to Donna crying beside her. Raymond saw her worry but stayed silent, bad at comfort. He asked Karen if she had fun. She angrily reminded him she was stabbed. He apologized. He struggled to find comforting words, as he didn't know how to communicate, so he couldn't comfort people. Karen sighed, seeing him as a victim, and couldn't muster anger. Raymond said she'd stay at the estate for years. She was shocked. Karen wasn't worried. She'd still have fun. He asked how. Karen recalled seeing an elephant for the first time. It was massive. She hadn't known such a big, beautiful animal existed. She smiled, finding it weird and wonderful, and enjoyed it. At first surprised, Raymond smiled, glad she liked it. But Donna cried Karen shouldn't have seen that big elephant. She sobbed more, blaming herself. Karen told her to calm down. Donna clasped Karen's hands, saying if Sir Sights hadn't come, who knows? Karen silently agreed. Holding Karen's hand, Donna said fate must have brought them together. Karen shot an angry look at her butler and Raymond. She saw the novel's characters had created a dramatic love story, but Karen took it seriously. She decided to break the scene and pulled her hand away. Capon asked if this fate was too cruel for her. Raymond gawked. Karen hugged her, saying she'd almost died twice. Donna was moved. Karen asked Raymond if she was wrong. He agreed she was right, his face showing deep sorrow. He was alarmed, but she showed no fear at all. Next morning, Isella's room was messy with dresses everywhere. She demanded a different dress, saying this one was too light. The maid brought a pink-bowed dress, but Isella found it unrefined and accused her of mocking. Isella raged that peasants were blind. The maid apologized. Her father appeared and told her to calm down and stop arguing. Seeing her father, Isella burst into tears and hugged him. He was baffled. Isella said Raymond had saved Ms. Geyer. Her father knew from the paper, proving Raymond a true knight. Isella kept crying, saying Karen was prettier, and asking what if Sir Raymond loved her. She turned. Her maid looked away. Isella said all awaited this. Father said he'd need a harem if he liked all beauties. That scared her more. He gripped her shoulder. Noble marriages are deals. Love comes later. She listened silently. Would Sir Raymond cancel and take another bride? He asked. He said he couldn't imagine that. She understood. Isella knew her father believed all act on profit, not feelings. She doubted. He cupped her chin, said she was too emotional. She trembled fearfully. He glanced at the maid, asking about her duties. She clutched his hand, choking back tears, blaming the horrors she'd seen. She saw Geyer's maid Nancy dead on her bed. Her dad was shocked. He'd never heard of that maid. He urged Isella to call her. Seeing her might stop the nightmares. Tearfully, she said the maid was on leave since the day after they arrived. He found it odd since they'd been there a long while. Then Isella, scared, said she'd not seen her since. In Karen's room, the table brimmed with fruit, sweets, cookies, and makeup. The head maid laced her corset. Helen told Karen to stop fleeing servants, and she agreed. Helen anxiously stressed Karen must choose her maid very carefully. Helen doubted Donna could care for Karen. Donna shook in fear, longing to keep the role. But Karen disagreed, crediting Donna for introducing Sir Sights. Helen snapped at her tone. Karen's dress was for dinner with him. Donna had called Sir Sights her destiny, angering Helen, who glared as Donna knelt and begged pardon. Karen smiled. Maids knew Durin, her fiancé, lacked courage to wed her. His inheritance on her father's death made him just a backup plan. So estate maids hoped she'd find a better man, like Raymond. Yet, recalling their talk, yesterday's Raymond seemed oddly different. Donna knelt crying, apologizing to Karen. Furious, Helen demanded why she'd said that, needing to scold her again. Karen smiled, taking blame, asking Helen not to scold Donna. Helen sourly noted Karen's youthful indulgences, insisting Donna deserved punishment. Carrie frowned at Helen, feeling she treated her like a mother, too much. But Karen knew Helen ran the estate, and she couldn't manage alone. Then Karen saw Donna and chose to keep her as her maid. Karen took Helen's hand and said she disliked the change. She liked Donna. She asked if Donna would be gone. Could Helen amuse her? Helen said she was busy. Karen said even she couldn't be her maid. She looked sad and said she felt lonely. Helen gave in to her sweet face, made her promise not to act that way. She promised and rejoiced that Donna stayed. Karen saw why Helen acted so, old and overworked. She thought highly of herself. Helen said Nancy's absence caused a shortage. Karen asked what happened. Helen was surprised she didn't know. She thought Karen knew, so she apologized. Karen re-asked about Nancy. Helen said Nancy quit, overwhelmed by estate work. Helen added she couldn't help being born to Rome. Karen, furious, clenched fists, puzzled how Nancy escaped if murdered, whether plot or body snatchers doing. At dinner, Dad asked if she was okay. She said fine, nothing serious. Dad sincerely thanked Sir Raymond for saving his dear daughter. Raymond sadly said he was ashamed he couldn't stop it sooner. Karen thanked him too. He seemed unchanged, same as ever. She thought his carriage harshness was her own oversensitivity. Karen ate, pondering. Worry stemmed from not knowing Nancy's issue, so she suspected everyone. Isla asked Raymond if it was odd that best wine came from a monastery, noting gluttony as sinful pleasure. Raymond deferred to Durand, who was puzzled. He said he wasn't sure, hadn't considered it. Karen's dad helped Durand. Losing control is a sin, but enjoying food isn't. He told Isella that if that's a sin, they sin daily. Isella pondered. Tasty food must be sinful, so she should limit herself. Her father disagreed. The dishes aren't excessive, and what's the threshold? Isella raised wine. Shouldn't they care about common folks? She added that the trade system needs improvement. Her father asked if she was sure. She was. Karen, eating, was amazed that Isella did anything. Isella smiled, boasting she'd fully researched the docs. Karen saw it as her way to flaunt her duties as ducal head. Yet Karen doubted this would sway Raymond. Karen eyed Raymond, quietly eating, untouched by chatter. Though noble, he valued honor over gain. She knew Isella and her father lacked his prized traits. Karen's dad told Verdict she was odd. He smiled, saying she overrated her. He added Isella, his younger, was sharp and curious, and she puffed up proudly. But Karen, puzzled by such rudeness, set down her glass, resolved to school her. Karen said she'd not known restraint was a virtue. Isella argued for moderate indulgence with cultural refinement. She called her dress and gems frugal and asked Sir Raymond's accord. Raymond confessed his ignorance, adding that his mentor taught him never to meddle in women's talk. Isella, thrilled, wanted to ask about his mentor but lacked the chance. Raymond cut in, saying he'd intervene if it were his wife. Isella expected his support but was mistaken. He sipped wine, ignoring her. Her father stayed quiet, while Karen's dad watched with a smile. Durand and Karen were silent, lost in their own thoughts. Karen enjoyed herself, attributing Isella's remarks to her delight in the meal, and was glad she liked it. Isella, mortified, couldn't speak, and her cheeks blushed instantly. Soon, servants entered with a new dish for everyone. It was a baked bird fattened in Armagnac called garden oatmeal, which tasted delicious. But when Isella saw the plate, she thought it was the quintessential gluttony dish. Raymond noted the food tasted better, then asked Isella if she enjoyed it, and would conceal her sin in her clothes. Isella was deeply ashamed and stayed quiet. Her father rose, touched her shoulder, told Raymond he was overreacting, and reminded him she was young. Raymond calmly replied that he respected Lady Evans's vast knowledge. Karen looked at Isella, ashamed of her wrong choice. Verdict Evans said she'd had many worries lately. Karen's father said she was a businessman's daughter, but Verdict denied that meaning. He explained a maid owed Isella a debt. Verdict named the maid Nancy and asked if he also knew. Karen's father, looking upset, replied, "You've made quite a fuss about this." Isella asked excitedly what had become of Nancy. Calmly, Karen's father told her Nancy had recently left her job. Isella excitedly mentioned that she'd heard Nancy was on a holiday. Her father, still eating the tasty meal, said Nancy quit after her vacation. He then explained to all that Nancy came to him in person to say she was leaving work. Karen couldn't grasp who her father had met and spoken with, since she recalled that the Nancy he saw had been killed by her own hands.